Good morning. Try that again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How was y'all's day off?
Good morning.
Great.
Good morning. Good.
I wish Dr. White would give us a day off. He don't never miss class.
No, do what?
Nothing. I said just say good morning.
I thought you said something about Dr. White's class.
I said I wish Dr. White would take a day off.
Well, okay. So, let me see if I can do this. Today, we're going to go over those quiz questions. That's what we said we would do, correct?
When is the last day for the quiz?
Not till Monday.
It was due Monday on Moodle.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
due, right. It's due Monday.
Yeah, we really
Okay.
go over them because they kind of difficult.
They definitely
are?
are.
Yeah, they
Oh,
kind of
no.
difficult. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what my worry was, because everyone was saying how difficult it was.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't take mine. I just been trying to read a lot. I read after reading what everybody had to say, I was just scared to take it.
oh, shoot. Wrong course. Hold on. Well, shoot. There we are. Question. There we go. Okay. Once the quiz closes on Monday, the 15th, I'll give you a handout, okay, that has all of these items and the correct answers, etc. And you'll be able to use that as a study guide as well, okay? And then I'll be posting your midterm exam probably on, oh, we have daylight savings time coming up. Did y'all know that?
Yes,
On
I'm
Sunday?
excited.
Getting excited.
I am. It get dark so quick, so I don't have time. I be trying to walk, and it get dark so quick, so I don't have a lot of time once I get off work.
Right. Well, I understand that because I don't like driving all the way out the Marion from the campus, and I don't like those country roads that, oof, they scare me. So I'm excited for the daylight to change too. So anyway. Okay, so when your midterm is posted, everybody will take it on the same day and in the same time frame. You will still be able to use your notes. I don't like to set it up as a, being real intense with controls and so on. I just don't do that. So you have a limited amount of time. So the point is that you're supposed to be learning the material, right? Now, one of these issues that I think you may be dealing with is that I designed these for this quiz for y'all to be challenging so that you would think critically about what it is that you're answering, okay? So let's look at this one. Can y'all can't see my screen. I don't have it shared yet. Sorry, hold on. All right. Now, can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see where I am? 3005.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right. All right. So, this question is fill in the blank, right? And it's actually comes from a real thing that I heard on, what was it? Monday. That the British Broadcasting Corporation reported on the impact of, and you're supposed to fill in the blank, resulting from COVID-19 that's caused an increased rate of child brides in economically poor and underdeveloped nations. This could be considered an example of blank due to the removal of rights of young children, girls, some of whom are betrothed as young as 11 years of age. The blank for these young girls is that they risk poor health outcomes from sexually transmitted diseases. That's what STDs are about, right? I need to enlarge this. Let me see. Well, yeah, I can't figure out how to enlarge it. There we go. All right, is that better? Jace, you look like you were
Yes,
trying to
ma'am. I
get.
can see it
Yes,
now.
ma'am.
That's what I
Thank
do. I try to get up into the screen, although it doesn't really help much. Okay. So, and then there's the link for you there that you could have looked at and probably been able to have gotten the answers that way. But I wanted you to think about it because there are certain words that are used in that reading and also in your chapters 1 and 2 out of that Alexander text. So the words that you would expect to be there in number 1 would be environmental degradation, reported on the impact of environmental degradation. Now, environmental degradation doesn't just mean, land wasted or land erosion. It also can mean for us, because we're social sciences, and that's the thing you're challenged to think about, right? That environmental degradation is the only word that really fits there as you look for words in the readings, right? Circumscription is another one. And what does that mean? It means that they are assigned and can't make, when you are circumscribed, you are literally drawn a circle around and you can't go outside of those boundaries, okay? And that's what circumscription is. It's a great big word that expands your vocabulary and also hopefully makes you more aware of things that you will need probably on a GRE test, should you have to take that, or a Miller's analogy test, because they like to use those big words to see if you're able to figure those out and to think critically. And if you can't, then, one of the things that you can do, a test taking tip on circumscription, would be to think of that word, circumscribe. So to circumscribe means to draw a circle or to outline something, right? So it creates boundaries. So it could be an example of circumscription due to the removal of rights of young girls, some of whom are betrothed as young as 11 years of age. And then the next one, of course, is conflict. The conflict for these young girls is that they risk poor health outcomes. And that's the words those are the words that I was looking for. So what this item tells you is that you probably need to go and look through those words that are listed on the notes. I opened those. God, I hope I did, because they did not all get defined, but I want you to know those anyway. And again, this takes your being challenged to think about this in a critical way. And critical does not mean that you're being judgmental. A lot of times people think that when we use that word, that we're trying to, force opinions or we're being judgmental about something. And it's not at all like that. To think critically is actually, and this is my way of looking at it that I'm passing on to y'all to hopefully be helpful, is to look at it in a scientific and logical way. So critical theory is logic. It's all about logic. Okay, and logic is the basis of science too, right? Partly. There are other aspects of science. For us in social science, understanding the natural fit of things is applying logic, therefore applying critical thinking, right? And so when we hear things like critical race theory, there's lots of critical theories. There's critical communications theory. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but there is. One of my favorite authors is Kathleen, Lord, I can't call her last name right. Kathleen Jameson, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, she's Kathleen Hall Jameson, yeah. She's a communications professor who's written quite a lot and wrote about, the misinformation that went on in our last administration here in the United States. And she applied critical communications theory to the situation of media and the influence of media and the impact it was having on people who were taking some media sources, and this, I'm not talking sides, the general population were taking some media sources politically, either side, as gospel without really thinking them through, okay? For us as social workers, especially on the macro level, we really need to be able to think critically. We need to be able to logically think through how things fit together. I've already told y'all that I'm pretty nerdy, but with the passage of the American Rescue Plan, the $1.9 trillion, y'all are aware of that, right? That's going to be the $1,400 that'll come into your pocket probably. Also may provide some, not in this law, but in other laws they're considering, maybe even some student loan relief, possibly. I noticed that that was written about in your Hawkeye, your newsletter for the university, that students are saying some is better than none.
Are we actually going to get that 1,400?
Yes, you are. Mhm.
Like if we're dependent or whatever underneath our parents and all that?
Yes, and
Yeah,
you're
they
supposed to, if
said
you have
17 and up
children,
is supposed to get it this time too. Like if the dependent
right.
is 17 years and up, they're supposed to get the extra
Oh,
1,400.
thank the Lord.
That's right, Cheris. That's exactly right.
Thank you.
And some of the stuff that I was reading, I didn't get very far in it, but some of the stuff that I was reading in the actual legislation, in fact, I was thinking of y'all because some of it dealt with homelessness and the kinds of resources that are going to be available to help homeless people. And that was really quite incredible, the amount of emphasis in that bill to deal with homelessness and people who are becoming homeless, and even those are designated in that bill who are homeless but living with somebody, right? So they're couch surfing. Those are considered homeless people if they don't have their own domicile and they're not contributing, to the costs of wherever they're, couch surfing, then they're considered homeless. And a lot of people who have been evicted, another book that is really quite good that, let me see, that I recommend highly. I'm gonna have to start, even though I do open educational resources, I'm gonna have to start having y'all read some good texts in my classes. I'm not gonna do that to you now, obviously, but some of these are really good texts that could be very informative to you. But this one is called Evicted, that really describes some just things you probably have never thought about, but that bill actually addresses. Things like landlords who are trying to maintain their properties, but if they're renting to low-income people who can't pay their rent, and they're trying to allow them to stay in their homes, and they're already, before the pandemic hit, many times a month or even 2 months, sometimes 3 months behind, and it's just through the grace of the property owner in this evicted story that they're able to stay in their homes. But at some point, that property owner has to evict those individuals, which in turn makes them homeless, right? So a lot of information within that bill about homelessness that I'm really looking forward to bringing into some of our discussion in the future. So those are the words that we're looking for, big words. That's why it was hard. You need to go back and look at those words on that list. Let me, well, no, I don't want to get out of here right now. I'll go back and look at it in a minute, okay? All right, so let's go back here. Remember, I'm going to give you these as a handout that you can study from for the midterm, okay? All right, so now let's do this one. I'm going to edit it. Now see, since if you're making notes, you should be able to go in and get all 50 points, right? That's the idea, is to reinforce by covering the material that's here, that's built on the stuff that you're expected to read and view, etc. So that way you're able to actually integrate that information in your knowledge base. Okay, so here we go. This one asks you, which of the following terms has as its meaning the larger, broad, or extensive condition? Condition is the key word. What state is a particular system in? And in our case, we're looking at macro systems. So we're talking about communities, right? Cities, governments, right? So already you have these terms that describe the characteristics or conditions, states of being. So the following terms has its meaning as the larger, broader, extensive condition of a system. This one really isn't so much about critical thinking as it is about knowing what the meaning of these words are. So obviously, the correct answer would be what? Macro, meso, micro, none of the above?
I say macro.
Macro.
If it's larger, it's gonna be macro, I think.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's the key word. Good, Jace. That's right. So the larger, broad, extensive condition of a system. So that system, if it's large, is not going to be the individual. So it couldn't be micro, right? It's not going to be large and broad and extensive condition of a system. It's not going to be meso because those are smaller, right? And not as broad as, say, cities, communities, etc. All right, good. Okay, so now, all right, we've done that one. We've done that one. Let's do this one. Okay, now I forewarned you that I wanted to put that human needs, the first 7 pages in your quiz, and that's what this is about. So chapter 1, he talks about corporations and macro systems that exploit its workers. So thinking about, and this is where you're having to really logically think this through. And you would have to go to that article to look at the tenets of human needs, the theory of human needs, THN. And basically, you already know it because you've done psychology courses, almost all of you. And as a result, you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You've done HBSE I. So you should be familiar with that. And that's all the theory of human needs is. It's just building on Maslow's original constructs, meaning the parts of building that, the building blocks for the pyramid that he talks about, right? So now we're talking about not just that pyramid, but other types of human needs that fall within those steps that Maslow identified. Also, test taking tip. You can always tell how many items you need to, because first of all, Moodle tells you to select more than one answer, right? So you know you got 2 answers here, right? Because it's 6 points. Okay. So when a corporation relocates their business to countries with low wage workers, those workers are robbed of their ability to meet their basic human needs. Why is that one of the correct answers? Go back up here and let's look at sorry. Look at the
Because if they
question.
can't,
US
if they can't work, they can't provide shelter or food or care for them, their families.
That's exactly right. So if corporations relocate their business and the low wage workers, they're first of all being exploited, right?
Right.
countries with low wage workers. That's what happens. They exploit those low wage workers. So they're making more profit. But what happens to people who are left behind in the United States, a more wealthy country that needs consumers to drive the markets, right? You know, I always like to say lately, and about halfway through my career, I came to this, that actually that's our job as Americans, is to be the world's consumers. No kidding. That when we spend money, why do you think we're getting money in our pockets? There is an expectation that we stimulate the economy. Stock market went wild this week. Well, not really wild, but I mean, not that I don't have stocks, but I like to listen to that because that's part of economics that impacts economic information, that impacts social welfare institutions, and how we actually are able to meet our basic needs in ways that we are expected to in a wealthy country. We are expected to have cell phones. We are expected to have televisions. We're expected to have running water. We're expected to have what else, y'all? In a wealthy country, what are we expected to have? Adequate clothing, adequate
A
food,
car.
transportation. That's right. We're expected to have transportation either on our own that we possess, like a car, even if we're making payments on it, that still is a possession, right? And we're making payments to what industry? But not just the car company, but the loan company. Sometimes the loan company is the same
And
as
the
the car
insurance
right?
company.
Insurance company, the biggest scam in the entire world to me, because you pay and you pay and you pay and you pay, and God help you if you file a claim, right? Because you have to pay your deductibles. There's always a deductible unless you're paying through the IT.
And you could have been
insurance
paying
or somebody
insurance for
else for
years
you.
and never had an accident, and they still want you to pay a deductible.
That's exactly right. And then when you do have an accident, or you have to have something done to your car because it's, you know, broke or whatever, then your insurance goes up. So they're going to make sure that they get you consuming their product of insurance to protect you from not having transportation, but they're still going to make their profits. You see? So that's just my opinion about the scam. Quick comment. Okay. So the corporations exploit the workers, and they also exploit the workers in the low income countries or the poorer countries, unindustrialized or advanced countries, versus here in the United States, who are then left without jobs to be able to, you know, be good consumers, right? And if we are good consumers, how are we doing it if we don't have enough money in our pockets?
Welfare.
Welfare? Yeah. You don't get very far being a consumer on welfare, though. What's the main thing that we all get barraged with that has totally flipped? Y'all wouldn't know that, but I'm going to inform you about this. What do we get in the mail offering us all the time?
Credit cards.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right, Laura. So exactly right. So we get these notices to get credit cards, and for a short spell, until we had the Consumer Protection Bureau, let's see, I think that was in Obama era. So sometime between 2008, I think it was in the first term. But credit card companies have completely flipped how we are supposed to be economically secure as middle-class people. And here's what I mean. When I was a child, a long time ago, I learned, and my parents reinforced, that the first thing you do is you pay yourself. You pay into your savings accounts, always. No matter if it's just a little bit, you put something into that savings every single paycheck, right? And you don't use credit, because if you do, it will reflect badly on you. Now, if you don't use credit, it reflects badly on you. You see that? It is completely flip-flop. You can look at old, 50s, early 60s home ec commercials that teach about economic viability for the individual family and individual person. And it says, don't use credit unless you absolutely have to, and pay it off as fast as possible. Reminds me of Dave Ramsey. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of Dave Ramsey. Excuse me. But Dave Ramsey is a radio talk person. He's spiritual based, and he advocates for not carrying any balances on credit cards, and to cut your credit cards up. And that is good advice. However, the world doesn't work that way anymore. And boy, did I learn this the hard way, thinking that's how it was supposed to be, raise my kids up. Now, my daughter, when she was 35, went to go get her very first car after she had, had a broken relationship, et cetera. And, anyway, so she tries to go get credit for a car, and she can't get it because she doesn't have a credit history. She had one credit card opened. This may apply to some of y'all. I don't know. One credit card that she had opened in her lifetime since being on her own in her mid-20s, after, graduating and starting her first job, married, and so on. And she rarely ever used it. When she did, she paid it off, because that's what I taught them, right? It's not that way anymore. You're supposed to carry some kind of balance in order to build your score up, to show that you are a good credit risk. Isn't that crazy? So over that period of time, over the last 40 years, that strategy that Dave Ramsey teaches and advocates for may be useful for some, but in the real world, the truth is it counts against you if you aren't in some way establishing a good credit history. And not only that, it impacts your ability to buy a house, to buy other large items that you would probably have to get on credit and gradually pay off. So it's really crazy. And the Consumer Protection Bureau, actually stopped a practice that was occurring before some of y'all were born, because I know some of y'all don't even remember 9/11. But in the late 90s, there were, oh my gosh, when I first started teaching and up until the Consumer Protection Bureau was created, there were flyers and these little things: apply for this card as a student, you can get credit as a student. And they were all over the place. Well, Elizabeth Warren was an economist at, I want to say Princeton, or one of those big, Ivy League colleges, and was on a video that I used to show before she got into politics, that she was just an economist and, wrote about these things, and was in a video that I would show that you can still get today. That the name of it slips my mind at the moment, but the content is not as relevant as it was for that period of time, because people would get these credit cards and get so in debt. Then they would try to, have these bank accounts, and the bank accounts would, have overcharges, and you couldn't pay them because the banks would charge you and charge you and charge you and charge you on top of things. And then it was just impossible, right? I had another daughter that had that happen once. So just interesting how economics plays that central role in our country, and always has, and how we economically advance as a population in the United States in ways that adequately meet our human needs. We have needs for recreation. Not all of us are outside people. I'm not. I never have liked exercise and all that stuff. I always struggle with that. I have to force myself to do that. So, different ones of us like different things as part of recreation. Going to movies. How much are movies to go to nowadays? Holy cow, you can rent a movie now because of pandemic on, one of the streaming networks, and have tons of people seeing it, and you're saving money, right? But I don't know, it costs a bunch of money to go and be at a theater and get food and popcorn, whatever, right, Jace?
Yes, ma'am. And I feel like in like 5 to 6 years, unfortunately, I feel like movie theaters are going to go out of business because of all the streaming places. I hope that didn't happen, but that's what a lot of people are. I've researched it, and that's what a lot of people are thinking.
Mhm. They are, however, the norm of being at the movies, you know, in a very large theater with a huge screen and, you know, the popcorn and the Coke and the candy and the hot dogs and the nachos with the jalapeno peppers on them and all that stuff we get at the theater, right? Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna pan out. They may be reduced in number, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting, and I think we'll see by probably the end of summer at least, or maybe sooner. I don't
I
know.
think they'd do a
gonna
lot
be-
better if they didn't charge $10 for a drink.
I know, right? So, you know, whenever we go, my husband and I, we just get one drink, one big drink, because it is so expensive, and then just share it because, you know, and that is if we don't decide to, you know, bring bottles of water in, you know, but you're not supposed to do
And
that, right?
snacks. All you need is a backpack or a purse.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so so here are the answers then to this about chapter 1, talking about corporations, it's macro systems that exploit workers. The choices are relevant to exactly what I'm telling you. It's not only the workers themselves, U.S. corporations that relocate their businesses with low-wage workers, and they're robbed of their ability to meet their basic needs. And that's true. If any of you have cable or you're inclined, there are amazing, I wish I could remember the name of that program because I haven't been on it in a long time. I happened on it accidentally, but it's I think it's called Link. Anybody ever heard of that network, Link, on cable by any chance? Well, it shows these foreign videos. It's usually late at night, and so, or early morning, and they show these videos of people in poor countries who work in, say, food industries or picking rice or whatever, and or processing meats, for example, in some Indonesian countries. And the way that they live is just, it's shocking how exploited they really are and the amount of work that they have to do. You want to talk about worker protections? They ain't none. It's really quite shocking. So the exploitation is very intense for the foreign workers who pick up the slack when companies move. And then here's the second answer. When a corporation uses foreign low-wage labor instead of American labor, both groups don't have the ability to exercise autonomy of agency. Autonomy, what does that mean?
Like to make choices for yourself and be like,
Yes, to act independently, right, to act on your own. And what does agency mean? Think of
Like to
what
have
does an
someone
agency do?
thinking for you, to have someone thinking
They
for
do
you.
things for you, right? So an autonomy of agency is doing for yourself. Okay, so an agency, if you think about social service agencies, they do things for people. That's a good way to remember it. Okay, so likewise, we do for ourselves, and when we can act on our own behalf, then we have autonomy of agency, and that's in part of some of that reading, right? So any of you select this answer: corporations relocate to countries where production costs are more profitable. Yeah, but it's not more as specific as we would expect. And the same here. This one's way too short. U.S. corporations facilitate cultural transmissions of dominant culture. These are true statements, but they're not relevant to what the question is asking you. It's asking you to think critically, think through the logic of what you're being asked. Macro systems exploit their workers. How do you apply human needs theory, and which of the human needs are most impacted? And that's why that's the correct answers. Okay. I need to go a little faster here. But it's no matter, because I will still put these up for you as a handout you can study from. Okay. Where are we? 1, 2, 3. We're on number 3.
We're on question 4.
Oh, question 4. Oh, crud. Sorry. Did y'all type your names in to chat, I hope? Let's see, question 1.
Yes, ma'am.
There we are. Okay. Now be sure you type your name on the way out too, because that's how I'm checking roll. Okay. Now here's one that gives you a lot of content, and this is called the STEM. The part of the question that you have to provide an answer to is called a STEM in test taking and questions when you're creating questions. So because of COVID-19, its impact on the economy, US economy, a 19-year-old young woman lost her apartment and job as a waitress. She now lives in a tent on a vacant, secluded lot near a railroad track. Apply the theory of human needs and identify which of the following macro systems are compromising her ability to reach the universal human goal of avoidance of serious harm. And you had 2 choices you had to make. Is it entertainment? No. Is it education? No. It could be, right? But more specifically, it's going to be family and economics. So living in that way actually compromises, and this actually came from a public broadcasting news hour report. And this was a real young woman who actually was pregnant and lived in a railroad track. And because she was able to be assisted by an agency that worked with homeless people, they were able to get her into a homeless shelter and then eventually her own little house. So it was a good end of the story there. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on number 5, right? Okay, which of the following best describes human needs? And there's only one answer because there's 3 points. So living up to expectations by a person's micro, meso, and macro systems, physical, psychological, economic, cultural, social requirements for survival, well-being, and fulfillment is the most comprehensive answer. It's not that this is necessarily wrong, but this one is more specific and more relevant. And that's what applying logic in your answer choices to get the right answer is about. Most of your standardized tests are structured that way in social sciences.
And what did you say that one was?
It's physical, psychological, economic, cultural, and social requirements for survival, well-being, and fulfillment. So it lists all of the specific things, right? All of these relate to micro, meso, and macro, but it's more specific. And that's what you want. You want to detail out living up to the expectations, or is it just the basic needs of well-being and fulfillment? Or is it interactions surrounding human beings, or degree of individual rootedness in social interactions? All of those are things in your reading that you would see are associated with personal fulfillment in the human needs theory, or in Maslow's hierarchy. But again, this one is the reason why it's the most correct answer. All right, let me just go through because we only have 5 minutes left and I want to just give you the answers, okay? All right. Oh. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. This one is true, false, I think. Oh, I have an error there. Okay, what's a periphery? Another word for boundary, isn't it? It's the edge. It's the edge of something. It's not necessarily circular, but it's the edge of something, the periphery, the outer edge, right? So there's a diagram on page 19 in the Alexander text there, and it shows you the periphery societies. And what are some of those periphery societies? You need to look at those and see. That is a false statement, because on that diagram, United States and Great Britain are not considered periphery societies because of the influence they have in the world. They're more wealthy countries. So look at that and see if you see that makes sense to y'all. If you don't, you need to let me know, because I don't want you getting trying to rush through because we're almost out of time. Sorry. See, they're not numbered. Okay, according to, we just did that. And then this one was a little challenging, wasn't it? This one you had to look at the census and wait. Okay, so you had to open this little diagram so that you could see it well, because you can't see it really well right here. You open the link and you look at this, the Census Bureau, and you look at the poverty rates by age from 1959 to 2019. And we can see that poverty rates of elders, shucks. Okay, so let's see if we can make this a bit. Okay, now, all right, so here's elders from 1959, and what was happening to them? They kind of leveled out as far as poverty rates, right? A real high poverty rate here, and then began to go down. What happened here was Civil Rights Act that eventually impacted elders, because at the time civil rights was going on, there was also Maggie Kuhn, who was an advocate for elders' rights and the expansion of Social Security, Medicare, other benefits for elders to reduce poverty among them. So the supplemental security income and other benefits were, SSI was expanded, and other benefits, homeless shelters, Medicaid for nursing home, etc. So this group of people right here decreased dramatically in this period of time because of all that legislation. And they kind of, got a little poor over time, but not a whole lot, right? Here you've got y'all's age ranges, 18 to 64, middle age. And so what's happening here? Y'all were in poverty, but your poverty rates have kind of leveled out and have over the last few decades kind of increased a little bit, right? And then sort of leveled out here a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like after 2020 information comes out. But what's happening to these kids? What's happening to them? They were poor too in 1959. But what's happening here?
It looks like they're probably going to school and, getting an education, getting a good job. And then later on in life, they probably don't, later on, they probably don't get as good as benefits as they used to. Like they're ending up having to.
Could be, exactly right. So, but they have stayed poor is the bottom line. So this group right here has stayed poor. These children, where I'm showing this blue line, it's vacillated a lot more than elders and middle-aged people. And what happened here was the war on poverty. So that's why it went down so dramatically. But then it started going up. And I was reading documents by this period of time, in the 1990s. And when I taught child in the community a few times there and doing resource centers, that was like my mission, is because kids were increasing in poverty and not getting adequate nutrition, et cetera, because the documents I read from W.K. Kellogg and Annie E. Casey Foundation and other organizations that advocated for kids was saying 1 in 5 kids were living below the poverty level. and were struggling just to have adequate nutrition. God help them if they can't go to school, which was the problem during COVID, right? So, but then we had some legislation here that helped take care of some of that, but then we started going back up because some of those costs increased for providing for kids, and as a result, you know, it went up again. So we constantly struggle with getting kids what they need. And even though it went down by 2019, it's still higher, significantly higher than the other two groups, elders and middle age. So what does that mean for that question? That unfortunately 65 and older remains the highest group in poverty? The answer would be
Yes.
True.
elders 65 and plus remain the highest group in poverty rates in 2019.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Look here, this is about poverty rates from 1959 to now. Here's where we are today, the closest data we've got. This purple line is elders.
Oh,
The
elderly
green line
declined.
is your age range, and these are
Oh.
kids. Yeah, you see
Yeah,
it? So
yeah.
actually, elders are doing better than any group as far as poverty. That's my generation. We had a bunch of selfish people in my generation. I'm just saying. Okay. Okay. So there's the answer to that. And we are just almost slap out of time. Here, let me see if I can help you with these. Ugh. Oh, crud. All the rest of these are true false. And this one is systems theory is considered a dependency theory. That's true because systems depend on each other. Each system builds on the other to meet human needs. So that's true. Let's see. And this one. Sorry, we have to do it this way, but that's so y'all can. Okay, understanding social economic forces on individual social systems are essential for social workers to practice in socially just ways. Just tell me, what is that? True or false?
True.
That's the values, ethics stuff. Do we need to understand social and economic forces to understand how individuals and social systems are essential for us to practice and to assure justice for our clients? If someone's being exploited
Yes,
economically,
ma'am. It's true.
yes, absolutely. So that's true. That's just a given true. Exactly right. That's from your values. Let's see. I think we got most of them. We're at 1 minute. Countries where the economic system is based on capitalism are those where human needs are more effectively met due to the impact of broadening and deepening or growth of corporations. And that is straight from the definitions, but that's false because broadening and deepening or growth of corporations, that doesn't go together. The broadening and deepening of corporation influences are not meeting human needs well. In fact, they compromise us as consumers in ways that I talked about when we were talking earlier about what happens with credit. That's not fair to us as individuals. That's what we're expected to do as citizens of our country and also of the world, that we're supposed to be the biggest consumers, right? That doesn't help us really at all when corporations take more and more and more and more control and control most of the wealth, because it prevents us from doing work to make sure people are treated fairly. Okay, we're done. I'll put this up for you as a handout so that you can go back and look at your information. And Callie, go ahead. What you asking? You raised your hand?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay.
I didn't mean to. I was trying to type my name. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, that's it. We're done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.